So, welcome to the first issue of our show about inspired living. My name is Verena, and you can find out more about me and my work at meinnächsterschritt.de, and you can find the link below. So, the purpose of this show really is to show that there is always more possibility in life to have a joyful life, to have fun in life, you know? And that's why what I like to do is to talk to people that inspire me. And that's what I'm doing today. I invited Mary Schiller on the show, and I'm really happy that she is here on the first issue as well, because she is really a very big inspiration for me behind everything that I'm doing and that this show exists at all.
Mhm.
So if I had to describe Mary and sum it up in one word, it would be creativity. Maybe another word, fun as well. It's just really amazing how much helpful stuff she's putting out there, and all kinds of things like books she is writing, free articles. She's also giving free webinars, doing programs. She has a really, really valuable Facebook group that I also can't recommend highly enough. It's called Getting Paid to Be You, and I will also put it in the show notes. Yeah, so I'm really happy that Mary is here on the show today. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Verena. Thanks for having me. Fun to be here.
I came across your work when you started with your daily principles. And yeah, could you perhaps talk just to that the listeners and viewers know what was happening there? Like what was it about?
I started publishing that daily blog, the Daily Principles, back in 2015. And I did it for a year. And it was spurred by a discovery that I'd made about a year earlier of something that is generally called the three principles. I had been, unfortunately, somewhat consumed, I would say, by what's called post-traumatic stress disorder my entire adult life up till that point. I was really struggling I was really struck by what you said in your intro, to find any joy, like real joy in life. There were certain things that I found joyful, like spending time with my family and my daughter in particular. But overall, my experience of life was pretty rough, to say the least. And it resulted from a traumatic first marriage that was full of violence and lots of ugliness. And that kind of followed me my whole adult life. I married him when I was 22, and I got divorced when I was 29. And then I still had to have a lot of contact with him throughout all of my 30s and into my 40s. And it was just a long period of time to have to be in contact with someone like that. So I went to a lot of therapists and tried a lot of different alternative treatments for post-traumatic stress disorder, and nothing worked. So I just assumed, essentially because of what people told me, that I had a condition that was incurable and that I was going to have to learn to live with it as best I could. Everything that I came in contact with, that's what it was telling me, that it was only a management situation, not a cure type of situation, if that makes sense. And so I was very skeptical that anything could help me, because I had tried so many different things. And the last thing that I tried was a really lengthy psychotherapeutic process that was very intense. I even had to take some time off from work during it because I couldn't function. So I went through this whole process, and afterwards I was feeling pretty good, better than I had like in a long, long time. And then I started to go downhill again. And I got really mad because I was just, I just thought, I've tried so many things to help myself and nothing seems to work. So I guess this is just the way my life is. I lived every day with a lot of anger towards my first husband, a lot of guilt over making the decision to marry him and all kinds of things like that. I was also incredibly jealous of people who seemed like they had sort of happy-go-lucky lives. Nothing had happened to them like that, and that just didn't seem fair. And on top of that, I had a lot of fear and anxiety just in certain situations. It seemed like I would just go into kind of a state of paralysis, where I just was really, really fearful and stressed. And I'm surprised that I was able to function as well as I did, considering the state of mind I was in. Because even during all those years, I still was able to do some normal things. I got remarried and raised my daughter and got a couple of graduate school degrees and had some good jobs. But on the inside, I was kind of a disaster area. And then in 2014, I came across a book pretty randomly called The Inside Out Revolution by Michael Neal. And he talked about these things called the three principles. And in and of themselves, the principles, I wouldn't say are as important as what I heard in the book, which was really two main things that nobody had ever told me before. The first thing that I started to see more clearly was that circumstances, anything out there, couldn't create a feeling in me. That whenever I had that feeling of stress, for instance, it wasn't because I was sitting on the subway and I was too close to people or something. It was coming from a thought that was going through my mind. And so that was a revelation to me on many levels. I can't even describe to you what a significant change that was in my perception. Because for one thing, I had believed that unless I could go back in time and make a different decision about who I married that first time, that, that was the determiner of everything that came after it, all of the experiences I had. And what I saw was that simply wasn't true at all, that I was having some thinking that was bringing about these feelings. And that had nothing to do with that situation, that I could simply kind of not worry so much about having these post-traumatic stress disorder type thoughts, because they just didn't seem all that important anymore. They didn't look like they had anything to do with me, like the big me. It was like the small Mary had all these thoughts going through her head. But this is the second thing I discovered, is that there was a me that wasn't those thoughts. There was a me that couldn't be harmed by anything that had happened in my life, that couldn't be, tarnished or made unwell in any way. And so those two realizations from reading Michael's book were just life changing for me. Very, very quickly, within just a few weeks, I stopped having daily post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms, and I had had them, like I said, for decades. And I also just started to have a much more peaceful sense of daily life, which is something I had never really known before, ever. Since I was 22 and the first instance of violence happened toward me, I had lived in that place ever since then. I had never really known a day of real peace in my life until I came across what I read in Michael's book.
Wow, that's really amazing. I heard your story already a few times, but every time I hear it, or you wrote a whole book about like what led up to that, and then you added a new ending, so to speak. And I just find it so fascinating and inspiring. It's incredible.
Yeah, when I reread that book recently, at that memoir that I wrote, it was hard for me to connect, I guess, with the woman who is writing that because that just doesn't look like me anymore. I know that that's how it looked to me then because of all of the thoughts I was listening to all the time. But now it just doesn't look that way to me at all. Life doesn't look like that. It looks, back then everything was very closed off, pretty dark a lot of the time. I felt completely and utterly broken as a human being. And now I feel about as opposite from broken as a person can feel. I don't even relate to that anymore. And there's a difference between that and saying that I'm perfect or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. But I don't have the sense anymore that I need to fix anything. I'm more in discovery mode with myself now. I want to discover more about, this experience that you and I are having, and what more can I see about that? And that is now the primary focus of my life, whereas it used to be trying to fix something that wasn't actually broken in the first place.
Wow, yeah, that's such a biggie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and what I like about this discovery is what I also kind of learned more by being around you, as virtually,
Mm-hmm.
experimenting, and then seeing what happens, like doing
Mm-hmm.
stuff, and then evaluating, and then looking again and trying out more stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, really love that.
Yeah, that's not something that I was really consciously doing prior to all of this. I was sort of sleepwalking, I think, in a lot of ways. I was still, because I can see now that I wasn't really broken. I can see that this natural creativity that we all have, this, innate, I don't know, it almost seems like a caretaker sort of thing. That was still going. I was able to create a new marriage. I was able to create a good relationship with my daughter. I was able to create good jobs and things like that. So all of that was still functioning and I was being taken care of. But now that I have a much more conscious awareness of what's available to us to use in terms of all this creative force, if you will. Now it's just like, let's go have fun. Let's go do stuff. Let's go make things. Let's go, experiment with life and see what we can do. So, so now I feel like in the last 4 years because we're talking in 2018, so it's been 4 years. I just feel like my actual tangible creative output has just increased exponentially. It's hard to even measure that. Let alone, the sense that I have every day when I get up of what's possible.
So would you then say that you're always happy and joyful and life is always just beautiful all the time?
That's a good question. I feel like even when I have felt down, I know that the undercurrent is peace and clarity and joy. So I can have this kind of surface experience, this human experience that includes all emotions. I can have all of those. And I've had all of those in the last 4 years. I had someone very close to me die. I've made a major move across the ocean and to a foreign country, and I've done some things, and I've had a lot of feelings that have gone along with all of those things. And yet underneath all of that is this core certainty that all is well, and I'm well, you're well, everybody is. And that's always there, no matter what the surface experience is like. So I give a lot less credence, I guess I would say, to days where I feel down or sad or worried or whatever. I just don't really pay much attention to those feelings. I feel them, and that's kind of the extent of it. I don't investigate them in any way.
Yeah, and I find that so helpful and hopeful as well, that we don't have to change our feelings. That's what I'm seeing, and
Mm-hmm.
that what you are mentioning also quite often in your videos and everything,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't have to change our feelings, and we can nonetheless have a great life, even if we don't feel happy and all
Mm-hmm.
the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because one of the things I discovered along the way of, starting with reading Michael's book was that, thoughts and feelings are kind of two sides of the same coin. You have a thought and there's a feeling that comes with it. Sometimes you can't even tell what the thought is. It's just, you
Yeah.
have this sense, right? And I just realized that all of those years I had been trying desperately to control all of that. I'd been trying to stop myself from feeling anxious or whatever it was. And once I wasn't concerned about feeling any old way, like anxious, worried, all of those things that, I used to feel, it was like the volume just got turned way down on them. And so, I mean, I can think of some days I've had in the last few months where I have had some stress or whatever, but it's just not been a big deal. I don't know how to put it. And the other thing that's so interesting about this to me is human beings spend so much time, like you said, trying to change their feelings, trying to chase after happiness. And what most people don't realize is that that's already here. We are that. We don't have to make that or chase after it or try to create it in some way. And once you see that, even a glimpse of that, then you don't worry so much about what your day-to-day feelings are. And therefore, you have lots of free time because you're not busy trying to make yourself feel better by, whatever it is you're doing, and those can be all kinds of things people do to try to make themselves feel better, some positive and some not so positive.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so refreshing to hear you talking about that, because when I look out there in this self-development world, that's what you read everywhere, and it feels
Mm-hmm.
like so much hard work. And I've
Mm-hmm.
been there, I've done that.
Me too.
And I mean, it always went until a certain point, and there were some successes along the way, and that was like, okay, so it's working, this method is working. And then until it didn't work, and then
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whose fault was it? Not the method. It was my fault.
Yep.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, no. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
I did that too. I kept thinking, like I said, that I was broken, and I would try these different things. And when they didn't work, of course, I thought it was me.
yeah.
And what I discovered is that you and I don't need any work done on us, that we work just fine. Everything functions just fine. And we are, from the way it looks to me, is human beings wouldn't have feelings if we weren't designed to have them. Okay. So we're designed to have feelings. So
Fantastic.
we'll just have them. Okay. Can we just have them and leave them be and not judge some as better than others? We have such a measurement going on here, not just which feelings are better, but how long you're supposed to have certain ones. You're only supposed to have these kinds of feelings for a short period of time. Otherwise, they turn into a problem. If we just stop doing all of that, we could really do a lot of great things. I think if we stop trying to manage all of that,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's a waste
Stop
of time.
trying to manage what is not supposed to be managed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then you can tap into all that creative energy and do something with it. Yeah, precisely.
Fantastic. So, do you have a special message that you want to give out to the world?
Mm.
I mean, you already put out a lot of things.
I guess I would just say that, if it seems to you like you've tried everything and there's nothing left, there is something left. I didn't come across this until I was 52 years old. I wish I had come across this way of seeing humanity a lot sooner. But you know, it doesn't really matter because um, it's such a simple understanding of the way human beings function. I wish it was being taught in schools and by parents and everybody, you know, starting when we're young, we could see the truth of how our experience is actually happening. So if you're out there and you're feeling like you've lost hope, well, don't lose hope, because there is an answer, and it's a really simple one.
Wow, I love that. That's really beautiful. Wow. So, when people want to connect with you, how can they do that?
They can find me on my website, which is simply my name, maryschiller.com, MARYSCHILLER.
Great. Well, will also put it down out in the show notes. So,
Cool. Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you very much for being our first guest at the show.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to your next creative idea.
Me too.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Serena.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.